Thank you all for joining us today. Today we're joined by Kim Zaruca, the Chief Donation Officer at We Are Sharing Hope. Kim, thank you for joining us. We
Thank you for
appreciate
having me.
we appreciate you taking some time to talk with us. Wanted to, since this is a new role for you and for We Are Sharing Hope, wanted to talk. Could you share a little about your background and what led you to a career in organ donation to start?
Of course. So my career originally started off in critical care nursing. So I had a background in pediatric nursing, pediatric ICU primarily. And I used to ride and train horses and had a really bad riding accident. And that took me away from bedside nursing. And I ended up in the OPO field because of that. And I started as an in-house coordinator for an OPO in Ohio and really grew my career from there. I did that for 6 years. So that was what brought me into the OPO industry just by chance of seeing the position. And I had worked with the OPO quite a bit as a nurse at the bedside.
It's an interesting transition there into the community. As I mentioned, this is a newer position, a newer role, obviously, at We Are Sharing Hope, Chief Donation Officer. Can you talk about your responsibilities and sort of what you oversee within We Are Sharing Hope?
Sure. So when I came into the OPO field, going from the in-house coordinator, I've been on the transplant side of things, but primarily I've spent time as director of hospital services in a few different positions. And so we were looking at building more of a position that focused on partnerships. So that encompasses all the partnerships that an OPO has, whether it's hospitals, with our families, with our transplant centers, and then also with our community, with our coroners and funeral homes. And we are now even branching out into hospice and first responders and having a little bit more community focus. So the chief donation officer role really came about with trying to get a something that would be over all the donation systems. So whether it's the going into the hospital and making sure that we get all those relationships built up in a positive donation culture, which inspires a family to want to say yes to donation. And inspires the coroners to say yes and really support donation out into the funeral home. So we wanted to put somebody in a position that could really grow those donation systems. And that's really how the CDO position evolved.
That's fascinating. So it sounds like a lot of collaboration that you have to do, a lot of partnership building. So as you approach this new role, how would you describe your leadership style and how you go about sort of growing these collaborations?
Yeah, so I think like many leaders, I don't tend to fit myself into a certain leadership style over another. I would say my leadership approach is more one of really taking somebody's strengths and growing them. I like to empower the people that I work with, and whether that means getting them assigned certain projects to help them grow in their career space. But really, on the leadership team, my style is really collaborative and getting everybody's ideas on the table to really formulate a strategic plan that we can all buy into. So even right now, we have the hospital services team in the building really looking at their 1 year, 3 year, and 10 year strategic plan, and the buy-in from the people, because they come from all different backgrounds, is really important to me in building that plan, because if they've created it and they've created their core values and their mission statement and the work that they're going to do, then they're going to be more bought into the process and really wanting to collaborate with their peers inside that department and outside. So like you said, it's a lot of collaboration, just connecting the teams together. So even though the clinical systems may not be directly underneath the chief donation officer position, it's tying all those processes together and really linking them. And it takes somebody who has the strength to really say, we want to do better every single time. And I think our industry is challenged right now in and trying to be innovative and trying to really tackle the challenges that we have. And that includes a really cohesive leadership team.
And great leadership style. And it sounds like you try and grow and leverage the strength of your team members and try and help them grow individually, which is great as a leader training the next generation that's coming up. And you touched on innovation in there. And what ways do you envision working with your team to drive innovation and advancing donation practices?
Yeah, so I think innovation is a hot topic in our industry right now, and we've seen a lot of different practices change within the industry. So it's looking at each one of those things and saying, instead of saying, oh, that's not how we used to always do it, or that's how we did it before, we can't do it that way. We look at it, how can we make this happen? So anything that we come, I mean, whether it's looking at artificial intelligence to really help us predict factors, whether it's getting our NRP practices together. Um, right now, we're looking at what our true donation potential is and holding meetings to discuss that. And so I think innovation is it's a hot topic in sharing hopes culture right now. And I think in our industry, the more we can collaborate with each other as OPO partners and share the ideas of what works and what doesn't. I know I'll give a shout out to the co-OPO Hospital Engagement Forum, and we have a leadership forum, but it's a space for OPOs to come together to share ideas that are working, but it's also a space for OPO partners to come together and talk about what their challenges are and how we're addressing those. And I know CMS is very heavily invested in that as well. So I think, to me, innovation is really it's at the heart of our industry, but then it's also trying to be innovative out in our hospitals as well.
You mentioned, as part of that, you mentioned earlier that your hospital services team is in and they're looking at their 1, 3, and 5-year goals, and I'm assuming you're doing that across your different employees and your teams. So how do you challenge yourself and your teams to continually to improve and to save more lives?
Yeah, I think that is something in our industry that we're we're passionate about the work that we do. And sometimes the work that we do is very difficult. Being out in the hospitals, if there's a difficult culture out there, that leads into having a more difficult conversation with a family. If our hospital partners aren't setting us up for that conversation, or our family support counselors go out there, and if they're not met with somebody who's going to take them and help them walk through the approach process, that makes their job so much more difficult. So constantly supporting our people through those challenges, letting them voice the challenges, and then helping them find solutions maybe together, of what works. But we're constantly asking ourselves, getting to the root of the problem really, and then really figuring out how to best address it. But I think the plans and the different teams really being a part of what they feel their role should encompass, and the things that they hope to accomplish out there, whether it's with a donor family, constantly looking at best practices out there with conversations with the families, bringing in, I know DCD, first person authorization right now is a huge topic out there, and it's a huge challenge for our FSCs. And then it's bringing the teams together. It's bringing the hospital team, the family team, and the clinical team, so that when they're on site on a case and they're supporting each other, they have their own little supportive environment out there, but then they can also share ideas of what they think might be work best, or they're going in with a family that might be challenging, so that they can constantly read the room of what's going on with certain members of the family. And again, I think a lot of that goes back to collaboration, and just really sharing the ideas and best practices.
Yeah, it sounds like a huge role that you're undertaking, a lot of challenges, obviously a lot of collaboration internally and a lot of challenging your team. So good luck with that. We're always here to support you. And as you said, collaboration within this community is huge. And so I know a lot of your colleagues are open to, suggestions and to networking to help. So anything we can do within the association, we're always here to support you and your teams.
I appreciate that.
Shifting gears just a little, we like to close with sort of getting to know you outside of the job and the role that you have. So, you mentioned the transition from, the horse riding accident leading you into, the life in the OPO community. But what's the most unusual or interesting job you had before entering the OPO world?
Yeah, I would say it was probably, I don't know that it was a job because I didn't get paid for it, so it was more of a hobby, but I would say probably training horses was a huge part of who I was growing up and even a young adult. Um, Horseback riding teaches you a lot of discipline. You have to take care of the animals and all the materials, and you're challenged every day. You overcome fear every day. And I think that that position was probably something that really gave my professional career some character.
That's great. And everybody always wishes for a pony, a dog,
Yeah.
some animal but they never think about you have to take care of it, which is sort of
Uh,
where you led with. It's a constant. Well, before we close, is there anything else you'd like to share with your OPO colleagues?
um, I think just an appreciation for everybody out there. I think we as an industry have really an unwavering dedication to the work that we do. I talk about it all the time that we're probably one of the most mission-driven
Mhm.
industries, yet we're the most criticized right now. And I think the fact that everybody out there has continued to just strive forward and be passionate, I can't imagine doing anything else in my career. I took a brief break from the OP
Mhm.
industry and went and did heart transplant and liver transplant. So I've seen the other side. And that was at Texas Children's. So that was working with children that needed a heart and a liver transplant. And just seeing that in that side of our field and the passion and dedication and just we have a pretty elite industry, and I just appreciate everybody out there. Some of the best people I've ever met in my life are in the OPO industry. So I'm just grateful for everybody and to continue the collaboration and just be a part of this.
Well, thank you. And you're right. There's so many committed individuals like yourself and others that make donation and transplantation happen every day. So, yeah, great way to close. Well, thank you again, Kim, for taking time out of your busy schedule. I know you've got a lot to do, a lot of responsibility. So we appreciate getting to spend a little time with you today. So thank you.
Thank you.